Well, good afternoon, Pittsburgh and surrounding areas, who are all of our listeners. We're so glad that you are here. Here on this Friday evening for our Jesus and Justice Conference. This is a live podcast, and we're so glad you have joined us. We believe that Jesus and justice go together because Jesus is for justice, and justice is about Jesus. And so we have been, this conference, this is our second day. Yesterday, we had an awesome time. We had talked about and helped some people give information about expungement. And then we had a job fair where you could get some information about those people and programs that are available to help individuals who may have been incarcerated and have been released or have felony records. And so tonight we have a awesome program planned for you on this podcast, and Pastor Jeff Baskins is going to come, we're co-sponsoring this event with Bridges. I'm from Efton Temple Seventh-day Adventist Church at 1205 Wood Street. And so Pastor Baskins, if you'll just come and introduce our guest for tonight and for this great program that we have planned.
Thank you, Pastor. We're privileged tonight to have Reverend Cornell Jones. Most of you in the Pittsburgh area and beyond will recognize that name, and many individuals will recognize the name of our other special guests who will be interviewed today. Reverend Cornell Jones is a pastor, activist, mentor, father, and husband. He is currently the Group Violence Intervention Coordinator for the city of Pittsburgh, where he brings outreach teams and law enforcement together to counteract and prevent violence in the community. Reverend Jones has served as the Protestant chaplain at SCI Pittsburgh, formerly known as Western Penitentiary, for over 10 years. And while working in the prison, he was involved in many crisis de-escalating, and gang prevention teams. He recently launched an internet radio station, WXCN Power Radio, with programs to train returning citizens from the prison system. And then we are very privileged to have Mr. Robert Wideman, who is a Homewood native. He served nearly 44 years of his life sentence for his role as an accomplice in a 1975 Pittsburgh robbery that culminated in the shooting and death of Nicholas Marina. After 7 unsuccessful appeals, his unanimous commutation by the state parole board was followed by Governor Tom Wolf's signature, freeing him about 4 years ago, I understand. And his story is phenomenal. It is riveting in its truth, and the justice aspect or the injustice aspect of it is something we want to take note of. And so this evening, Reverend Jones has willingly accepted our invitation to, and via podcast, as you know, conduct an exclusive interview with our very special guest, Mr. Robert Wideman. We welcome them today. God bless you.
Thank you, pastors. It's an honor to be here. You're on the We Are the Village podcast, and I'm so excited to be with an amazing man that has been a blessing. When I worked at the old penitentiary, Brother Farouk, you'll hear me call him Brother Farouk because that's something that we called him at down the way, was and still is an amazing person. In fact, I looked at a couple things that stood out to me, and some of you might not know some of these things, but some of this might be new for y'all. Brother Farouk was an amazing musician. I don't know if you knew that. He was the maestro. That's what we would call him sometimes down at the prison. He was the maestro. He would get on that piano and just play, right? He was talking about that a second ago. And if I remember right, Brother Farouk, were you self-taught?
Yes, for the most part, yes. I had one person that led me down the path in the beginning, a guy named Joe that passed away.
Hmm.
But he led me down that road and he showed me what the keys were, and from there, I got books and was determined to know it. It was something I always wanted to do.
Tough. There was a lot of times that you would hear or see him, even when I'd walk on the unit. Sometimes I'd walk past and hear him playing in his cell, just as they say in the church, making a joyful noise unto the Lord. And so that's one of the amazing things. I don't know if people know, but if you're an author too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So so many different skill sets: a father, an advocate. An advocate in so many different ways. A lot of people don't know that you taught classes before.
Oh, yes. For the University of Pittsburgh, in the prison for 15 years, algebra,
15 years.
trigonometry.
Yes. And a lot of, and that's something that I was blessed to learn while I was working down at the prison. But he's also, aren't you like a certified yoga instructor too, or something like that?
Yes, I taught yoga for a lot of years.
Can you show us a little something? No, I'm just
No.
joking. I'm just joking. So as you know,
Those years are gone.
but look, it's all good, man. It's a blessing to know and have seen the fruit of your labor, bro. And it's an honor to be able to interview you. I had my daughter, my printer was down, right? But I had my daughter write this down. Some of you might know what this is. It says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an incapable network of hold on, what was it? Hold on, I can't even, she wrote it in a multitude. Yeah, we'll go with that. Tied to a single garment of destiny, whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. That was by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. So injustice is there something that we have been dealing with for a long time. So before I go into the injustices of your situation, I felt like it was important to, and don't be real quick on me now. I need you to talk to me a little bit.
Okay.
I need to hear you a little bit better too.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I need to be able to grow. I need to hear the story of you growing up. Just take me to you growing up as a child, and like just some of the things, because I want to just understand who Brother Wideman is.
Well, I grew up as the youngest of five.
Okay.
I was spoiled. We grew up in my early years, we lived in Shadyside. And I went to Liberty School, and I learned the feeling of being one of the others very early in my life.
What does that mean,
I could tell, being a black man in America,
Okay.
you're always part of the others. I have a brother that's famous, that's been a part of probably mainstream society now for 60 years or more than that. But he still feels it. You work downtown, I work downtown at this point, but it's not went anywhere. And my point is that I felt that early, especially growing up in a community like Shadyside, which was a lot different than what people might know it to be today. It was a neighborhood kind of place. And sorry again to say, I hate to make it about racism, but I've lived it a lot in my life. They had like two streets down there where we lived. And when I was a young man, I can remember me and my little couple friends that lived down there, we would go singing Christmas carols. And the police would see us, there'd be 3 or 4 of us, because it'd be me and my brother right next to me, which was 18 years older than me. God bless his soul. He's gone now too. And a couple of our little buddies that we played ball with and stuff. And, I'm talking, we were 8, 9, 10 years old in that area, because we did this for a few years. And the police used to stop us and say, "What are you doing down here?" And we said, "Oh, we just live right down there on Pierce Street. We just live over there on Copeland Street." And they say, "Well, get back over there. You ain't got no business here." But, the other side of that they would come to us sometime. I remember one specific time when the lady whose porch we were on, or whose porch we were walking up to, stepped out to the edge of her porch and said, "No, they come here every year and sing us. Let them boys alone." And, you know, two police officers' faces turned red, and they didn't really appreciate that. But I appreciated her, you know. So I've always tried not to be that, what I saw them. And so that took me a lot of places as a young man. You know, I said I was spoiled by my family. Not that we had much to spoil me with. We were still very poor. I can remember me and my brother and sister, the three youngest of us, crying because we were that hungry at night. I can remember quick story. I hope I can get through it without tears. Christmas Eve, we had put our stuff back in those days. We could put it in layaway. Some folks around here might remember layaway. And we had all our little toys and all our stuff in layaway. And I can remember me and Dave and Tisha, that's their names, my brother and sister, like saying, "Mommy, when are we going to go get our stuff?" And she kept saying, I don't know. I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to get it. And I don't know where your father is. But I was blessed to have a father that was a strong black man that worked hard all his life, but could never get ahead, because we're talking about a man that was born in the 30s here in America, here in Pittsburgh. But he still worked, you know, but he had a habit of playing the numbers, and he could not get our toys and our out of the layaway. And I can remember his footsteps running up the stairs. We lived on the second floor of a raggedy old house, but it was, you know, where we lived and took care of. And he, Betty, get the kids. That's my mother's name. Get the kids. Come on, we got to get to the place and get their stuff out. He had hit the numbers. She said, "Well, Edgar, what you do?" "I hit the numbers, baby. I hit the numbers." And so we lived like that, hand to mouth, close. And we were a close-knit family. So I always had my family. At the end of those 44 years, by God's grace and mercy, I made it through that. But by his grace and mercy, my family was always there. We were that kind of tight. And we grew up that way. You know, we were little kids when we were talking about my youth, and we fought and, you know, threw things at each other, you know, with bad what little kids can go through. But, you know, that's how tight we were. So, you know, when we moved to Homewood, and I was still very young, I can remember my mother and my aunt, I was spying on them in the other room, listening to them. And they were so worried about taking me to Homewood because they knew I became very rebellious. You got to remember, I grew up, I went from baby to 10, 1950 to 1960. I turned 10 in 1960. 1960 was one of the most turbulent times in America. A lot of things changed. We made a lot of changes. I had really grown to learn some of these things. Like I talked about my brother, he would give me books.
Who's
you
your
know,
brother?
John Edgar Wideman is his name. You know, really a pretty famous author next to August Wilson here in Pittsburgh. He's probably the most famous black author.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so he brought me books, different, you know, books that he was in college in, and so I learned a lot of things about what was going on in the world. I was always interested in those things that were going on at that time. I mean, I was a fun kid, talked all the time, you know, people liked me a lot, I think. Not everyone, you know how that goes, but I was a real outward going kid. But as the 60s rolled through, I got more and more angry about what was going on in the world. I participated in all the what we like to call the struggle, the revolutionary actions that went on at that time. You know, I listened to Stokely and all the rest of them. You know, and probably the most militant of them, I loved the most. You know, Malcolm X was like a hero to me, and so many others. And you know, the night Martin Luther King got killed, I can remember just being in a rage. And I was on the Hill District on Center Avenue, and I can remember one side of Center Avenue just literally attacked the other side of the street. While we all on this side ran over to the other side and just started tearing up. And when I hear people say, "Oh, they should stop that," because I've seen so many riots since, and I wish we would, but I remember the rage that I felt that night, and I remember running. I didn't get any of the stuff that we grabbed home. It was just like, "Rah!" You know, how could you do this? How could this happen? And so, you know, I felt all that, and I knew all those, and you know, a lot of those things are a part of me. And so, you know, that's just a real quick synopsis of my young life. But also, you know, I was a bad little guy. I got into trouble because I didn't want to listen. You know, mom always said, "Boy, you won't listen." I can remember my father saying, "Betty, what are we going to do with him? He won't listen," because he'd run and hit me. And, you know, back then, you know, mom, dad gave you a spanking. They give you a whooping back
Neighbor,
then.
everybody.
Yeah.
Back then.
But my mom, one of the reasons I said she spoiled me because she wasn't gonna let him do too much to me,
Right.
and she, "Hey, leave him alone, leave him alone." And you know, I could remember him saying, "I don't know what I'm gonna do with him. He won't listen to you. He won't listen to me. He won't listen to his teachers because I wouldn't listen." And I didn't know it then. I didn't like think this out in some adult way, but I recognized it later on that I was angry about. You know, my dad was so smart. He sat and read every day. He sat with a book in the living room and read every day. He had went to college. He used to like to talk about it and brag about it to some people, and I would hear him talk about it. But he just couldn't make it. You know, he couldn't get through. And you know, he worked as a garbage man, which at one time for a black man in Pittsburgh, it was a job. It was a pretty good job. And you know, but I saw that, and I didn't want that for me. And they were telling me to be good so I could have some of that, so I could grow up and have. And I didn't want none of that. I lived in Shadyside, now on one poor street with raggedy homes, but there was a whole lot of lovely houses down there, and I saw what everybody else had, and I was like, "This ain't fair. This ain't right." And it wasn't, and it still isn't. But it made me very angry as a young man. And as I got older, and you wouldn't know it, some of my best friends was little white guys that I played with and ran around the playground with, and you know, did what we did together. But there was something boiling in me that I didn't know what to do with. And, you know, so it led me down some pathways, led me down some dangerous pathways. And of course, the 60s came. In the mid 60s, you know, it got more involved. And then, you know, some way drugs wound up on every corner in Homewood. Um, and, you know, I got involved in that. You know, it was a whole different scene than is now. And, you know, I had got caught up in so much of that stuff. And it led me to winding up in prison with a life sentence when I didn't even kill anyone. You know, so.
Let's go there. 1975, is that when
Well, it happened in 74. They caught me in 75.
1970, let's go with 1975.
Mm-hmm.
How did your life change?
Well, we thought we had came up with a good scheme. Now, I believe if I hadn't started using drugs, I wouldn't have started doing that kind of crime. You know, I don't know what else I might have done. I might have tried to work a little harder at going to college, but that stuff took me in the wrong direction. But we came up with a scheme that we would trick these people out of their money. So we would say we had stolen goods. In this case, it was TVs, and we would bring them to them, and they had to have the money. And we had done this a few times. We never had any of these stolen goods. Like I said, I've always been a talker, and I would go and tell these people. We would find people that we knew did criminal stuff, people that were fences and stuff like that, and go to them and offer them a deal they couldn't pass up, and they would agree, and we would show up and take the money. In the case of that night, we showed up and we thought they had a gun too, and so some things happened. I didn't know whether they had brought the gun out of the office, because I went in there to talk to them, and my two friends were outside in the truck. And, when we got out there, a lot of talking, like they didn't want to give us the money. And anyway, it wound up that the guy ran. And my friend ran after him. And they were all on the other side of the truck, so I couldn't see. So what I'm about to tell you, I can't swear to, except for I know this is what he told me. I know what I heard. He ran, and my friend went after him, and I could hear the scuffle. The rocks on the ground. It was a gravel car lot, and you know how they sound if you slide your feet. And I could hear them fall. It sounded like they fell. I heard the gun, and I heard the gun go off. My friend says that he fell and shot the guy in the shoulder. And the guy jumped up and ran, kept running. And I ran to the other side, and I seen him running, and we panicked. We weren't as hard as we wanted to think we were.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And so we panicked, and we jumped in the truck and ran. And so he died hours later because of what his family proved to be malpractice. He had no business
malpractice
on the hospital.
Wow.
He had no business dying. He was shot in the shoulder. The coroner said at the time that he should have never died. That the wound that he had was something that they learned in World War II. You just patched a man a certain way, a certain bandage that he should have used and didn't use. And it cost him his life. It cost me 40-something years in prison. The other man that I'm talking about, we'll call him Mike. He's still in prison. And the third man has been out about 25 years now. So, yeah.
Wow.
So that changed everything. So there I was in prison doing a life sentence.
Wow. Almost 44 years.
Almost 44 years. Like 43 and 10 months.
We'll go with 44.
Okay. That's what I tell people all the time, 44.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Which is deep, because especially when we're finding out, when I'm learning and from doing the research, when we're finding out that this is something that the hospital ended up messing up, which should have been, I don't want to say, we'll go with a lot easier than what it was. And now then you end up being in the penitentiary for 44 years away from your family, even though your family came. You know what I mean? And let it be known. I'm sure you learned being out here is a lot, I'll never forget the day, being out here is a lot better, I'm sure, as you already know.
Absolutely.
I'll never forget the day we had a volunteer day, and they brought outside pizza.
Yeah.
And outside pizza, and I'll never forget the day when Brother Wideman was eating the pizza, and he's like, "Man, I haven't had outside pizza in years." And I was like, "Man, Brother Baskin, I was taking things for granted, thinking about, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to be like, look, take all mine and put that down, give this to this brother right here, because now that I found out what happened, I'm like, we should have gave it all to you." You know what I mean? But I'm glad that you're able to partake of the outside world
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe a few things about prison. People always ask me how I did it. I mean, the straight answer is I kept waking up in prison.
Mm.
I had no choice but to do it.
Mhm.
I saw a lot of men go crazy. I saw a lot of men. I saw some make do some try suicide,
Mhm.
be successful at suicide, um, and then just lose their mind and walk around and giving up. But one thing, and I taught this for a lot of time, and I tell people this to this day, is that you can never give up hope.
Mm.
I never gave up hope. I never believed from the day the judge sat there on his podium and told me that I had life without parole. I never believed that I would do it. I just didn't see that as my life.
Mhm.
I just could not believe it, and I never did.
Mhm.
And so I tell people all the time, through hope, I had a 3-year plan all the time,
Mm.
all those 44 years. The last one worked, but all those before it didn't. Uh, as they wound down, I was thinking of, well, what do I try next? How will I try to, beat this? And 20 years before I came home, we found out that Mr. Marino's family had sued the hospitals and the doctor and got paid a whole lot of money. And we were never informed of this. I just happened to see a little article this big in the newspaper in a Sunday paper, just reading the paper. I read all the time.
Yeah.
And my brother John sent me boxes of books and other people's, and I would read the newspapers, and it was something to keep my mind focused, and all the college courses and classes that I took, and but I read that article that day that told me about what happened, and we went to court, won the case. This is 20 years before I came home, and Judge McGregor gave me a bond. I was supposed to leave and go home that day, and they sent me back to the prison, and I'm all excited. The whole prison is excited. When I come in the yard, everybody's hollering and running to me. Oh man, we seen it on the news. You coming? You're going home? And like I'm like mystified because when I came in, the warden is out there at the door, and he wouldn't even look at me. And I was like saying to him, "Yeah, I'm going home." And he looked at me all hard and turned and walked away from me. And I didn't understand why they were taking me back in the prison. They should have been bringing my stuff out that I had all packed, because at this point in the case, I was pretty sure I was coming home. They gave me a bond. I had the bond papers in my hand when I walked back in. I never made it out. Uh, you know, I don't want to bruise shoulders, but if any of my lawyers or people that worked on my case would tell you it was because of the DA was just getting his job, and he had a lot of power. His daddy was Supreme Court judge. And so they stopped it. And the next day we went back for the appeal, and they stopped it again. And so I never got out for 20 more years.
Wow. 20 more years.
20 more years. And hope I held on to. It's the worst of times. I held on. That's all there was. There was God, there was hope, and there was family. And, it was trying to, I learned so many things. I grew up in prison and taught myself and learned. And, I learned so many things, but I kept trying to do the right thing because I kept believing.
Yeah.
And you knew me there.
Yes, sir.
And you knew the kind of person I was.
For sure.
And so I started, they started bringing young men into the prison, juveniles from 8 to 17.
Yes, sir.
That were.
I was from the SIS program back then.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And me and another guy, brother named Richard Diggs, he's
Brother
passed
Diggs,
away now
my
too.
brother.
Yeah, brother Khalife. And we would talk to him, and we'd get two young guys to come in with us, to go with us, and they would bring them in the visiting room, like anywhere from 10 to 15 of them. And we would talk to them. And the change in these guys was amazing. I got letters from them for, next 15 years, some of them till the very end. I see these people all the time, and I see them on the street, and they run up, Farouk, oh man, I heard you home. And they're so happy. And I believe that's part of the reason God wanted me out here, because he saw what I tried to do in there. He knew the effect that it had on people. And the truth is, I didn't know the effect it had on people till I really got out here. And people make me feel it to this day. It's been 4 years. And, it's never 2, 3 days, especially if I'm out in public, or downtown. The first couple of months, I was in the halfway house that was downtown. And every day I went out and I'd see people, not just people that were in prison with me, but people that had knew me, and it was a joy. And so, it's been my goal to try to give back. It's not only a goal, I think it's a duty, because I was, God's grace and mercy said, I'm going to take you out of all these other lifers. I was the first lifer to make commutation on this side of Pennsylvania in 25 years.
That's huge.
And it was like, why me? There's other guys in there that I think deserved it.
Yeah.
I really believe that. I mean, he's the most spiritual person I ever knew is in there right now, dying. Malachi, you remember Malachi?
Yes,
And so I don't know, but he granted me this, and he's done that through my life. He's picked me up and carried me when I dumb myself didn't know which way to go,
Yes, sir.
and did stupid stuff and got myself in a jam. And he'd say, come on. Just one quick story. I'll tell you that, like almost at the end, we went through a lot of prison and youth. At the very end, some of the folks that are here today see me walk. I don't walk too good anymore because I played sports way too long. And I tore up my ankles. And in the end, my spine had got messed up, and I had a back operation. They put 12 screws and a rod in my back. And they took me out to the hospital to do this. And I had to stay out there extra days because I had like some complications. The back operation worked out well. It's the old sports injuries that have, done are starting to do me in as far as my walking. But I was out there, and the doctor kept telling him to keep me longer because he wanted to do more things to try to help me get better quicker. And so they kept me out there. And then one day, and I got to tell you, people that are listening, I was talking about race earlier, and it isn't about anybody's color of their skin. It's always about who they are inside. It's about who they are inside. And, while I was out there in the hospital, I was out there about 10 days and maybe a little longer. And, most of the time there was some white guards treated me well because I'd been in jail all those years. They got to know me. They knew who I was. And some of these guys were pretty nice guys. Other ones were just going by the book, doing what they were supposed to do. And so that this last day that I was there, we had 2 black guards on. And they came to get me to take me back after the doctor told them not to take me back. The doctor had orders for me to stay there. But the prison said, no, we're taking him back. They sent these 2 black guards. One of them was a woman, and one of them was a man. And the man was known for being a real hard A. But she wasn't. But she was following behind him, and they treated me terrible. I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand up. But they dragged me, and like I was in such pain. And this is about hope. So let me tell you the story. This is about hope. but I was at the end of my line with hope. I was starting to feel like I wasn't never going to get better. I've been laying in the bed now for almost 2 weeks. Couldn't get up, couldn't move. I could use my arms, but I couldn't use my legs at all. And I was scared, scared, scared. I thought I was going to die. I thought I may never walk again, because some of them were telling me you may never walk again. And so this night they came to take me back. They roughed me up and pushed me around in the chair. And I kept trying to tell them how all the other guards did it and how the nurses wanted it done. They told the nurse, we got this, and made her leave out of the room. And I was like, why you doing this? I'm not even going to bring up this man's name, because somewhere in my heart and in my soul, it's always about forgiveness. The greatest thing we do for ourselves is to forgive those that harm us. And if we get a minute, maybe I'll say something about that. But so I don't even want to say his name. I don't want to embarrass him anyway. But
Let's not do that for
yeah. But anyway, on the way back, they got me in the seat that they shouldn't have had me in. There was a place for somebody in my condition in this wagon we were riding in. And every time I do that, I'm bouncing around in a chair, and the pain is excruciating. And we were speeding down the highway because I was in Mercer County, Greensburg, and I was still down in the Western Penitentiary, excuse me. And it was painful. And on the way back, it's hard to tell. I started praying. I started talking to God. I said, Lord, what more do you want from me? What more do I need to do? I've tried to do everything that I thought you wanted me to do. I tried to do all those right things that I felt I had been taught by the people I trusted the most, which is like my mom and my dad, and all the things I should have learned from them as a child that they had finally given me. And I was praying and asking him that. And I said, and so I told him, I said, God, please just take me. Just take me now. Don't take me back to this prison, because I didn't think I'd ever walk again. I thought people would have to keep taking care of me. And so there's a prison that we called a place where they take the lifers to die. And I thought I was going to wind up in that prison. And so I'm literally asking God. And I see this big tractor trailer speeding down the highway. And I'm thinking in half prayer, half delirium, hoping this trailer is going to hit this little van I'm in. And, that my prayers will be answered. Take me home. Take me home. Take me home, Lord. And he said to me as clear as I hear my own voice right this minute. And, I believe in things that I'm talking to you about. But I heard him say, son, haven't I always had you? Them was the words. I know those words when I say them out loud. And I did like that. And I just tried to take the pain on the way back. Now, that ain't the end of the story. The end of the story is the next morning, they wake me up in the hospital, in pain. I don't want to get up. I can't move. They bring my food to me, and they tell me that the counselor wants you over in the block. I'm in the hospital block. The counselor wants you over in the block. I said, tell the counselor to come over here. I can't get up. And they said, no, you got to go over there. And I'm like, why can't she come over as a woman counselor? She's a nice lady. I know her. So they put me in another wheelchair and bounced me all the way over to the block, killing me. We get there, and she tells him, have him wait out there on the bench. So I'm laughing now, but it was nothing funny at the moment. So she finally comes out. Somebody wants to call you. You're going to get a phone call. When I get a phone call, it's the people from the commutation board. They told you how I made commutation. I mentioned it. And it's the person that calls you. They tell me that I got a full board hearing And nobody had had a full board hearing that I knew of for the last 25 years. And when they told me that again, it was like I heard him say, "I got you." He told me last night that he got me.
Yeah.
You know, I had put in something on my commutation. They had turned me down for commutation just a couple months ago, but I had put in an appeal. You could do that then. But I didn't think it was coming through at this time. All I wanted to do was stand up again.
Yes, sir.
But he stepped in again. So it's always been His grace and mercy.
Scripture talk. I'm sorry.
Yes, His grace and mercy. He pulled me through addiction. He pulled me through 44 years of prison.
Yeah.
He taught me to play the piano, something that I always wanted to do. I'm so hurt now that I got arthritis in my fingers, and I literally quit playing over 10 years ago. I probably couldn't play a song now if I wanted to. But He gave me those things to carry me through. He kept my family there.
Yeah.
I kept the love of them that they always gave freely, despite, my selfishness. And he taught me to be better than that, and sent me out here to do the work that I'm doing and I want to do and will continue to do.
Amen. Can we clap our hands for that right there? That's strong. That's good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Yeah. So 4 years ago, you see that smile that came on his face when he said that? What's the date on that? I don't know if you know it. Do you know the date?
July the 5th.
Yes, sir.
July the 5th, 2019.
2019. What happened on that day? And tell me, my wife is one of the people who were like, she tells me, like, when I tell a story, like I tell it too, she's like, I need you to like give it to me. Give me the story. Y'all want him to give the story, right? Like he stepped out and like, what did you smell? Y'all know what I'm talking about like that. So what happened on that day, July the 5th?
Well, I woke up early. They'd already took all my stuff. And at that time, I was in Mercer County Jail. I mean, not the county jail, but Mercer Prison. And, they put me in the van. And let me say this. I had to do a few more months before I really went home. It wasn't like the next day after I got that call. I had time to get up out that wheelchair and walk that yard in a lot of pain. Tell them don't give me no pain medicine. I came a long way. At that point, it had been 25, 26, 7 years. Not adding it up real quick, but something like that. And since I had used any mind or mood altering substance, and I was telling them, no, don't give me no more of that. And so I got to that point where I was standing up and walking. And that day they put me in the van and rode me back. And they were apologizing because they had to put the shackles on me. We know you're going home, but we can't take you out of here like this. This is the guards. They were actually happy. And they got me to downtown to the renewal center. And when I get there, they take me in and they're doing the intake on me. And I see them talking to each other, the guards. And they say, you got a whole bunch of people outside want to see you. And so, like, my son and, all my family that were living, by this time, I had lost just way too many. Two of my brothers, mom, dad, all my father's siblings, all my mother's siblings. But, my sister was still there. And, my one brother was, they were all gone at that time, actually. But my son was there, and just a whole room full of people that I'd been connected with through the university. It's called Inside Out program. So many stuff I've jumped over and skipped over that I did in prison to try to, like I said, keep making a way. They were all there. They had all took 2 buses to Harrisburg to my hearing. One thing I got to tell you right here is that I remember this that day because my sister sat close to me. My sister is like everything to me. Because she was always there. And I say, Tish, and she say, what you need.
Mm.
And it's been that way since we were kids.
Yes, sir.
And so she sat there next to me. But she had told me, and she told me again that day, at the day in Harrisburg at the hearing, when the judges said that I had made commutation and I'd be coming home, she said she fell out. My son fell down in the aisle. And she said she looked up and a couple other people were crying.
Mm.
And she said she looked up in the ceiling, you know, a higher ceiling than this. If you ever been up to the Capitol, you know, in the big courthouse up there, it has a huge dome in it. And she said that she seen my mother and my mother's two sisters up there smiling. She said, Mommy knew then, and she was there to see it. And I believed it, and I believe it to this day when I'm sitting here telling you. And it's almost like I've told the story enough times. It's almost like I see it, not just remember her telling me.
Yeah.
It's almost like part of my spirit was there to see that. And so she was there to share it with me like she shared every other bit of herself with me and me with her. We've always been connected to the point where if anything bad happens in prison, you know, they can't call you. But I would know, oh, I got to call Tish. And I'd call her and she'd let me know what happened. She said, oh, I knew you'd be calling. And it was always that connection. When I say my family was there, to the bitter end.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
It's powerful, bro. That's
Yeah.
very powerful. So we heard about the injustices, the things that were happening through that 44 years, and thank God that, you know, it takes me to the old song, we come this far by faith, right?
That's right.
Leaning
That's
on
right.
the Lord.
That's right.
Trusting in his holy word. I'm about to sing it, y'all. Pastor Bass, can you jump on the keys for me? No, just joking.
Remind me of mine. You remind me of mine. Get up, Jesus.
There you go. That's right.
The
Sing,
winds and the waves obey thy will.
Yeah.
I sung that to myself many a night. Get up, Jesus. Because I wanted him, you know, and it was my mom's favorite gospel song,
sir.
and it became mine. And he got up, and he was there all along. See, I just wanted one thing out of here.
Yeah.
But he said he showed me a way to do it without being one of them guys I spoke about early on that I saw lose their mind, lose their sense of hope.
Yeah.
They gave up.
Yes, sir.
At the end, I was real close.
Yeah.
And when I called on him, I could almost feel him say, "Fool, I got you.
Yeah.
Haven't I always had you?" And I
Yes,
thought,
sir.
you sure have. And even though I was in all that pain, I was still there. You know, it wasn't over. I felt closest to losing hope that I'd ever been. And the next morning, hope just poured over me. You know, hope poured over me. I wiggled up out of that chair and started trying to walk to the bathroom or lean on it and get myself there because I wasn't going to sit down no more.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't going to sit down no more. And so, you know, get up, Jesus.
Yeah.
And he always did. He always did.
I was about to ask you to do that one more time, and if he did it already, all right, good stuff. You might hear me doing it every once in a while. Now that's in my spirit now.
Yeah.
All right, so you've been like I was saying, you know, 44 years. You've seen a lot, and you know, through the years, I'm sure that you've heard a lot of other cases that are, you know, very similar, and people who've, you know, been abused, not supposed to be in the institutions, and because of lack of representation, lack of so many different things that are out there, lack of money, the setups of life, and you know, just seeing some of the young people coming into the prison. I remember, you know, seeing fathers and sons meeting each other the first time sometimes.
Yes.
Seeing that happening in the prison, and the things that you've seen on a regular basis, the trials, the tribs. And My question for you on this one, this is a tough one because I want the people that are watching this that, we're talking about Jesus and justice right here. What can we as the church do to be able to help uh, love, equip, empower, and the people that are in those situations? A lot of times, from me working, I know that those are the forgotten. You know what I mean? Those are the forgotten, but those are also the ones that poured into me on a regular basis. You poured into me. You know what I mean? Brother Diggs poured into me and schooled me in so many different ways to the point where, I tell people I come from the school of hard knocks where I learned from the lifers. I'm doing a lot of stuff that I do in the streets because I learned from brothers like yourself who I didn't judge. It was like Planet Fitness. It was a no judgment zone. You know what I mean? And it was just, I didn't judge, but y'all empowered me to be able to do what I do on a professional level right now. What can we do as the body, as the people of God, as the people of God, as your brothers and sisters in Christ? What can we do to help empower the community, the people that are forgotten?
Well, first of all, I said this a little while ago. We got to forgive those that are in there. We gotta forgive them. Now, I'm not saying we gotta let them all out, but we got to give them love, and we got to do it in a meaningful way, and that's trying to help them. And as well as them, but the ones that are out here that are lost. It is so easy to be angry at them because a lot of them did some things that, some terrible things. So it's easier to be angry at them. But I said this before. The greatest thing we can do is forgive those that have harmed us. But and the thing is this, you don't necessarily have to forgive them and you cut them loose for what they did or but the thing is that you're free. People I hear people say, well, I just can't forgive them yet. You're not forgiving them. You're forgiving you. You're the one that benefits from it. You're the one that grows from it. You reap all the benefits. If you do something to me, Reverend Jones, me forgiving you for it don't help you none. I don't have to even tell you that I forgive you. I got to forgive you in my heart. And then I'm better. Then some of that pain of whatever you did to me or whatever that person did to you or whatever those people out there in the street are doing to themselves are hurting themselves much more than it's hurting us. And even sometimes we think they're blind to it. I've worked with people like that 5 days a week. And sometimes they can be ignorant and make you kind of angry at them. You still got to have that love because they're human like you. And but for the grace of God, go I. And see, I've been down that street. And so I know there's hope that's on the other end of that. And we, as you say, folks that are part of the church, folks that believe, and I'm not going to name the belief, I've told you, get up Jesus, but I believe that spirit that's in us, that one that told me, that always had me, always got all of us. He has them in prison. He has them out there in that world that's suffering so much that we get angry with. And sometimes I do too. I work with them. And sometimes they act out. But we got to just stay there for him because, he got us. And by having us, he has them. They're part of us. And then we got to give them some training. We got to find ways to get the funds and the resources that we need to give them an opportunity. I mean, if there's no opportunity, then, if a person stays in prison and does nothing for 15 years, why is he going to act any different when he comes home?
Yes, sir.
How do you expect him? Well, he did 15 years. He should have learned. What he learned is how to do prison.
Yeah.
That's about it. How to play cards better.
Yeah.
How to sit around and tell lies at the table in the yard. If he didn't learn nothing new, I've told this while I was in prisons to state representatives that would come down there. I would try to tell them, you got to give all of us some education. If it ain't college, then it got to be vocational. We got to give them something to do, because a man can't come out here in the world with nothing to do and then get on some sort of government subsidy, whether it's welfare or SSI or SSD, dream up that he got some kind of injury and try to live off of that, because the streets will suck him in and make him want more. And then how do we expect them to do better when they never learned it? And so we need to be able to find and produce the resources to give people opportunities. You know, I'm working with a program called House of Life, and it's first run and operated rehab, not a rehab, excuse me, a 3/4 house in the state. And so what we do, men coming out of prison, and we want long timers, and we're creating where they'll be able to get some kind of education, some training, some we got a guy that owns a construction company. He'll teach them some construction, give them some work. He has a culinary company, and he'll teach them that and pay him while he's doing it, and give them an opportunity, a real live opportunity to come out and be able to start again. And, you know, give them that opportunity. And then, you know, some of those men that I said help run that place and help me and others come up with this idea. I got this idea from some other lifers that I left in the penitentiary. I'm the only one that made it out. And I promised these guys we was going to make this happen. And we're making it happen at this point in time, especially Khalifa, the one I said that died. And so, you know, those are some of the things that we need to do. And I know those are difficult things to do. Life is busy. We all got stuff we got to do. And, you know, we got our own people we got to worry about. But, you know, everybody talks about making the world better. If we don't give to the lowest of us, then who do we give it to? If we have some extra time, or can find some more resources, or find some more space in our hearts, if nothing else, let go of the anger at them, let go of the contempt for them, and give them some love, and know that they're human beings that need us to feel that way about them, you know. And so that's just a little of what we can do. But
Amen. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. So, and you really already started this part of it. You talked about House of Life. So what's going on in your life now? What you didn't just get out and just relax and just sit back and
no,
you know, kick your feet up in the air and watch TV. And
no.
you know, I watched the video earlier when you were, I think, about 3 months out, and you were still trying to figure out a cell phone. You know what I mean? And but now it's been 4 years. It's been 4 years, and what are you doing? I know you're doing a lot of this personally, but share with the people. You didn't sit back and say, I'm just gonna, you know, I got 44 years in, and I'm just gonna brag about that. You're out here doing stuff. What are you doing?
Well, I in the midst of the pandemic, when it first started, I got lucked up. I mean, it had been going on a little while, but when I first came home, the pandemic started months later. I told you July 2019. Pandemic starts just a couple months later. Me and a couple other guys that I knew that had done a lot of time in prison, we saw that when they started food drives, most of them were outside the city, and they weren't up on the Hill District, and they weren't out in Homewood, where we came from. And to get the food, you had to like go way out, and you had to have a car and get in line with your car and sit for hours. And like, I know a whole bunch of people, you know, my mom, when she died, she was living in the Homewood house on Frankstown Avenue. Wasn't nobody taking no food to them people. They didn't have no cars to go get it. And so we talked about this and said, man, we got to do something about this. So we talked to some people at the university, and we started renting vans and going to food banks and getting food once a week. We would do this, and it was like just so. It felt just so good to do every week, and so we started doing that. And in the midst of that, I wound up getting a job with Allegheny Health Network as a street outreach person, and actually became a certified community health worker. And so that's what I'm doing at the moment. Also, I've done a lot of speaking and went to different places. We've tried to start a couple different programs with Department of Corrections. We're still working on that. We're still working on, some other stuff with the House of Life. And, and I'm trying to work 40 hours a week. And hey, folks, I'm 72 years old and it's kicking my butt sometimes. And, hopefully, he's always had me and he got me now. And so, I feel like this. I was never somebody who could sit still. And I still can't sit still. I can't sit around the house and watch TV. I couldn't sit around my cell and watch TV. I had to be doing stuff. I had to find something to do. And real quick, as I know we're running out of time, when I first got to the prison, I was still young and still just not knowing which way I was going and not being able to believe, well, how do you do all these years? And I met this guy named Shoes. We called him Shoes. We played basketball together. Back then, I played basketball every day. That's why I got these ankles now. But we were sitting on the sideline. Our team had lost. You know how guys play, next team up. So we're next team up because we had lost the last game. And we're sitting there on the side. And I had been wondering about this guy because I just met him. He was a real good basketball player. But I knew he had 20 years in. No, 12. 12 at the time, and 12 seemed like forever when you're 25 years old. That's half of my lifetime. And 12, how did he do 12 years? And I finally leaned over and said, Shoes, because wasn't nobody there but me. And I said, man, how did you do 12 years, man? And he said, know when to make a change. And I carried that with me. I told you the 3-year plan. Know when to make a change. I knew when it was time to get my butt up into school. Know when to make a change. I knew when it was time to leave the drugs alone. Don't keep saying I'm only smoking weed or I'm only doing this. You know where that'll lead you. Addiction is about obsession and compulsion. And the more you do, the more you want to do. And so, you got to leave it all alone. I preach that too. I've been in NA now. I've been clean for 32 years. I go to NA meetings still to this day. And I tell people this all along, all the time. And I tell these young men that I worked with in the prison, those ones that they brought in, I sponsored half of the jail, if you know anything about NA.
He did, really. He sponsored half the jail, for real.
People tell me that, people that I sponsored, they say, yeah, and we're in meetings, and they say, oh, yeah, he used to sponsor everybody, which I did.
He was a mentor for the people that don't understand.
So, yeah, it's about that. It's about giving myself. And so I continue to do that because it keeps me going. I can't sit down. So, I just don't have no intentions on doing it.
So I got one more question, then we're going to go to a couple questions from the audience if they want to ask a couple questions. This is a twofold. So for, we're streaming right now on a whole bunch of different platforms right now, and we got some beautiful people that are here too. So for the people that are watching from the church, don't answer this yet. What would you tell them? What advice would you give them about getting involved? And for the young people that are watching, what advice would you tell them about staying away from, the life, the street life?
For the people that are in the church, keep the seats warm in the church. Keep showing up. We have an old saying, and it goes in NA, it goes like this, and we don't use the word but but we say, if your butt falls off, so you know the word we use in NA, if your butt falls off, pick it up
Yes, sir.
and bring it to a meeting and put it in a chair. So no matter how you're feeling, pick your butt up and keep from coming, bringing back the church, to the mosque, to the, you know, to the whatever place it is you go,
Yes, sir.
whatever place it is you go, where you find that spirit that I've been talking about here today, wherever that is, keep going there. That's where your Savior is. That's what saves us. And for them young ones, find that. Find what saves you. I know I got lost on following what the crowd did. I started getting high because that's what everybody did. And I always wanted to be hip, slick, and cool. And so when they were hip, the hipper and slicker and cooler it was, the more I wanted to be like him. And so I know we can get lost as young people, but you're young. You're young. The people to listen to, and this is hard for young people to hear. I couldn't hear it. I can say it now and know in my heart it's the absolute truth. Listen to the ones that you know love you. It ain't hard to know who those people are. They're the ones that's there. It's been a rough time for us as a people. And sometimes it ain't always their mothers anymore or their fathers, because some of them are missing in action because they missed some things that they needed. And now they're caught up. But there's somebody there. It's grandma. It's your big brother. It's your Uncle Bill. It's somebody. Maybe it's a teacher at school that showed you a whole lot. Maybe it's Reverend Jones here. Maybe it's somebody that you meet that takes interest in you. Listen to them. Try your best to hear what they say. I know you're going to still want to be hip and wear what you want to wear and, be like young people be, and do that too. But take your advice, the way you're going to live your life, from those that love you, because they're the ones that are going to give you their best advice. Maybe some of it they don't listen to themselves, but they done got old enough to know. So try to listen to them. So we're talking about them two groups of people. I guess that's what I got for them.
Good stuff. Come clap our hands for my brother right here. So right now I wanted to find if we could just go into the crowd and just ask some questions. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, the only, it's not really, I guess it is a question. I am employed as a chaplain. As you know, my friend, Reverend Jones, is largely responsible for me being where I am. If it wasn't for him, God used him to open doors down there for me. But I'll be going back in on Sunday, and Mr. Wideman, and I'll be standing before a number of men in 2 worship services, and I want to bring them something from you. Okay, what would you? And you probably already answered it, throughout somewhere during the interview, no doubt. But not to be redundant, I'm going to ask you again. What would you say to these? What would you like for me to convey to them? These brothers who are in there just like you were, and what the whole environment, the whole life and experience is, and I'll be standing before them again on Sunday, and I would like to convey something to them directly from you.
I appreciate that question. And when I talked about the brother named Shoes, he gave me that, and he carried me. So I want to give it to them. Know when to change. Know when to change. Now, the thing is, people think that means, well, you got to change everything now because there's just too much wrong. You can't do everything at once, but know when to change. Follow the best part of you, the part of you that you, things that you did that you're proud of, that you knew was the right thing when you did it. You know, there's an old saying that says, do the right thing for the right reason. You know, always try to do the next right thing. And so that part of you, and we know that part. You know, all of us do. We know that part, and we know when that voice is talking. You know, and try to keep uh, pushing that part of you, and know when to change. Uh, Not all at once, but do something new that you haven't done yet, and especially that. Uh, you know, Reverend Baskin, yeah, that is the important part. Know when to change and keep trying to find something new to do.
Good stuff. We got another question over here. Shout out to Gary in the back, running back and forth. Great job, bro. Is it on?
All right, thank you for your testimony. I loved it very much. I wanted to know, when it came to forgiveness, what was the process of you getting to forgiving, I guess, the people that did you wrong or put you in that situation? What was like the mental, and what was the process that you took to get to that place of forgiveness?
Oh, that's the easy question. My son got murdered while I was in prison. Um, he was in a fight. He beat up, you know, he won the fight, but he beat up like the big dope boy in the community. And this is back, let me see, in the 80s when, you know, like it was rampant and crack it took over our neighborhoods. And so he beat up the guy. And he went home, and this guy and two of his friends, and found out my son was over his girlfriend's house, kicked in the door, and my son came running down to see who's kicking in the door. And they ran. He spun around and tried to run up the steps, and they shot him to death. The next morning, I woke up in prison, and I seen on the news that they were saying that John Edgar Wideman's nephew had got killed. And John Edgar Wideman is my brother. But I'm thinking, wait a minute. My brother Eugene's son got killed. It didn't even dawn on me that my son, it didn't register. And I'm thinking, well, my sister didn't have any boys. And Dave, my other brother, didn't have any boys. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, Eugene has gotten, and my mind wouldn't stop doing that. And then I seen him, you know, on TV. It was on TV, and I seen him bringing a body bag out of a place. It was in Hazelwood. And then it started dawning on me that it could be my son. And so when that happened, I wanted to kill those guys. I really thought that's what I wanted to do. And this is what happened. One of them came to Western Penitentiary, and they're not supposed to put people in the same prison where they've had that kind of trauma with, you know, other people. But they brought him in there by mistake. And he knew a lot of people I knew. And so he sends word out. He wants to stay down there. And he sends word out to people that he knew that were good friends of mine, really, really close friends. And they came to me, a couple of them, and said, man, listen, he ain't a bad guy. Da, 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 da. And I listened to him. And my mind said that I would like to do it because it was my friends asking me. But there was a part of me said, I don't know. there's some rough days someday, and there might be a day when I see this guy and I want to sneak up behind him and bust his head open. And when that went through my head, I said, "No, come on." And by that time, I had made a lot of these changes that I'm talking about. And so I thought about that for a long time. They wouldn't let him out in population. The next day, they shipped him out. But that stuck with me for a long time. And not too long after that, one of the three, not the one that actually did it, he got killed in a motorcycle accident. Then the other one got shot, right? And they were both gone. And it tormented my first wife, who was my son's mother. But she was like, couldn't hardly talk about it. But I realized how much it hurt her and how much it was hurting me. And there was no way to get rid of it but to let it go. So I had to forgive him. There was one left, and I had to forgive him. And I felt bad. He was the one that wanted to come and stay down there in Western Penitentiary. He wound up with a life sentence, and he's still doing it. But I don't even remember his name. Right now, I couldn't say his name because he's gone from me. He's gone from me. He has, I have nothing else to give him. I forgave him. Hopefully he forgives himself. Hopefully he's got to the point where he understands that he needs to forgive himself. Hopefully, God has been there for him. I don't know. Those are just guesses. And where he's at, I don't know. But I'm not angry about him. Don't think much about him. But it made me better. So, and then I always hear people tell me about the tragedies they've had, and they're feeling about it, and they're feeling about their people. And I remember what I said about him, wanting to kill him, and realize how much better I was when I let that go. And so it's about learning. We forgive to give to ourselves, not them. We do it for ourselves. They got to find that for themselves. They got to forgive themselves. We got to forgive ourselves. We got to forgive those that hurt us. So it's always about forgiveness.
Good stuff. Question?
Yes. I so thoroughly enjoyed this. My question is, I noticed through the thread of your talk, you did speak a lot of education. And yeah, being from Pittsburgh, I do know who your brother is. But you did speak a lot of reading, loving books, and all like that. What I want to ask you is, have you, either of you, found that fostering a love for reading and for learning in young children, does it serve as a deterrent, no matter where these kids may grow up?
Oh, absolutely. I think new knowledge is what makes us. We are what we think. And we gather our thoughts from what we see. We gather our thoughts from our emotions and what we let them do to us. But we also, gain so much from new information. And there's nowhere we can get more information than from a book. I mean, I shouldn't say there is nowhere, because there is. We can get it from mom and dad and the folks that love us. But information about the world and how things work. And, then we learn the similarities and so many things. And we learn history. History is the greatest gift that we've learned to write down, because, as people, we are who we were. And, we make ourselves as we go along. And so we need that information. And it's such a relaxing, meditative sort of state to be in, to get in that chair, like my dad. I told you how he would sit down in that big chair and get them. He used to love cowboy books, all kind of books, and sit there and read them books. And every now and then I'd hear him laugh or grunt because he was in the book. And I remember how I did the same thing. You ever read a book that makes you laugh out loud, and you like, I'd hear myself in my own cell and say, "Oh, I know that wondering who's in there with me, and ain't nobody in here." But there's a joy in it, and you know, I've known a lot of people who read a lot that were like lonely people, but they found some solace in them books, and a lot of kids do that, and so it's a comfort. It's definitely a comfort. Yeah.
Yeah. That, sorry. Yes, I totally agree. Education is big. A lot of the people, I deal with a lot of shooters and people who are caught up in the streets. A lot of those people that are caught up in the streets, if they're 20 some years old, they have a third grade education, things like that, which, you know what I mean? And usually aren't ones who are, very few people that I've dealt with are ones who, that are caught up streetwise, are ones who actually were going to school to focus and things like that. So yeah, education is big, pushing people. I wish there's a quote I was about to pull out my phone and trying to find about Malcolm X about education. That's so powerful, but that doesn't help. So for the people that are watching, Google it. You'll see it's on a black males in education. But that's everything. That's everything. That's extremely important. In fact, when I would do a lot of work over at Truman Detention Center, one of the books that would be in a lot of the different cells was a book written by this man right here and his brother. So I remember going back to the prison like the next day, like, yo, right, I didn't even know you wrote this book. Now it's like everywhere, and kids are like, I love this book. And for me to be able to tell them, like, I know the writers, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know, and they were like, yo, man, tell him this, you know what I mean? Like, and for him to share something, back, and that lets that young person feel inspired, you know what I mean? And tell him to tell the young person's like, tell him to stay strong, you know what I mean? So that's empowering. And that young person is reading about this book about his life and his brother's life. So that's so empowering. And like, we were blessed, both of us. I didn't even realize this. Both of us were blessed to be able to have our fathers who were reading in front of us on a regular basis. And that was important. There was times when we shut the TV down and it was like, okay, go grab a book. Go grab a book. So that's important because knowledge is the key to so much. Any more questions? Brother Robert Farouk, I ain't never called you Robert in my life, brother.
No,
So,
it didn't even sound right.
it didn't even sound right coming from me. That's because we got time in together. Brother Robert Farouk Wideman, I gotta be professional here. It's an honor, brother. You done shared your heart, you know what I mean? Talked about some charges of what we could do as a church, what we could do as the community. You shared just things about education, things about empowerment, and what we could continue to do. I'm real big about us moving in verbs. Verbs is action. Verbs is action. You know what I mean? That's making sure that we're moving in action. I can honestly say Ethan Temple and Bridges, I've seen the fruit of the action that they've done. You know what I mean? So many times from feeding the people to Bridges was one of those ministries that Bridges was something special because a lot of times, a lot of different churches, and this is for the churches that are watching, will set up a prison ministry and come into a prison one time, and then they'll call that the prison ministry. But Bridges was there Sunday after Sunday. Did I say after Sunday? After Sunday, after Sunday, to the point where the people loved on him so much that because they became family. They became family. In fact, I was afraid to tell people that I helped Brother Baskin get that job because I didn't want to get jumped into prison because they loved him so much. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They loved him so much. So, you guys are shown putting in effort. So to the challenging the churches, get involved, learn about, study the civil rights movement, study, you know what I mean? Of course, Dr. King, study other ones that have been around, that have been involved in the civil rights movement and what we could do. Mass incarceration is one of the biggest, issues that we're having, in the churches could be counteracting those things. Good book to read is The New Jim Crow.
Oh,
by
yes.
Michelle Alexander. That's
Yes.
something, I'm not promoting, but I want us to understand what's going on. There's a movie on Netflix. I don't know if it's still on there. They're called 13th. It's talking about the 13th Amendment. You know what I mean? Somewhere I read in the book where people perish because of knowledge, lack of knowledge. So there's a lack of knowledge that we have, and what we don't understand is a whole group and a whole system of things that are going on behind these walls that it's important for the churches in the faith-based community to be involved in. The more we're involved, the more we're going to see transformation. The more we're involved, the more we're going to see when brothers come out, they're going to want to come to your congregation, and we can warm up those seats like
Yeah.
Brother Fruit was talking about right there, because they're looking for a place that's not going to judge, like Planet Fitness, not going to judge them, but it's going to meet them where they're at. It's going to meet them where they're at and love on them, because believe me, they're bringing a lot to the table. They've blessed me. Come on, Brother Bass. You know what I'm talking about. I feel like they've blessed me more than I've blessed them when I was working down there for 10 years. So, you know what I mean? And you want to talk about where the men, them brothers they're ready to come to our congregation. So let's get ready and prepared and learn what we need to do to be able to love on them and be prepared to be able to help them to be fishers of men too. So on behalf of, I'm gonna pass it to my brothers right here, but on behalf of We Are the Village, Operation Amani, GJ Coleman Media, I thank you all for your time, brother. I thank you, man. This has been an honor. Who would have thought that we've been doing this? You know what I mean? But it's an honor just to see the fruit of you coming out and getting your hands dirty, because you say, let's transform our community. So I thank God for you, man. So let's keep on growing together and helping to transform our community. God bless you, brother.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you all. Let's give them a hand. This has been a blessing. There's so many things that we could be doing on this Friday night, but this has been a lesson. This has been a lesson, and I'm glad we were able to capture it and be able to even go back and watch it again and show it. And so those of you who are in the listening audience, we thank you for tuning in as well. We want to remind you that we are here at Efton Temple at 1205 Wood Street. And tomorrow, you really want to be with us on tomorrow morning at 12 noon. We have Brother Jimmy Dennis, who is coming from Philadelphia. He has a message. Pastor Baskins, come on and stand with me. Why don't you just give a brief, because you worked right with him while down there in Green. Tell us about Jimmy and his experience and what he's going to be bringing us tomorrow.
Thank you, Pastor. Jimmy Dennis was on death row at SEI Green, where I am employed. And we developed a relationship. We always said, here's a person whose story is similar to Mr. Wideman's story, in that, he spent a long time. He was on death row and had the death warrant signed, and it was like maybe, a day or two from execution, actually. But he was unjustly accused of a crime that he did not do. 25 years on death row. He entered prison when he was like 22 years old. He is a phenomenal musician and singer, and had a promising career in front of him. And then he found himself on death row for 25 years. But tomorrow he's going to be here to tell his story. His story is phenomenal, extraordinary thing that God did for him. And you need to be here tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Physically be here. Don't get behind the computer screen tomorrow. Come in, sit in one of these pews, because there'll be a number of people out here, and be blessed by Jimmy Dennis's story. I don't want to give you the spoiler on it, but to let you know that you will be sick. You will not. It'll take you a long time to forgive yourself if you don't make it here tomorrow and hear this brother's story. And not only that, there's another brother who's coming up from Akron. He's going to tell his story as well, from Akron, Ohio. And this was another brother who was in the prison with us. And I don't want to give you the spoiler on him, but it's going to be powerful. You don't want to miss it.
Praise the Lord. So again, we're thankful for you here, and we're thankful, and we hope that you will be with us tomorrow at 12 noon. Again, God bless you. May his face and his peace shine upon you, and be here tomorrow, 12 noon, Effingham Temple, 1205 Wood Street, where we live, we love, and we serve. God bless you. Have a great evening.